come to order. Please stand for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law and has been duly advertised in the newspaper and as an official meeting. Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Present.
Mrs. Cass?
Present.
Dr. Osman?
Present.
Mr. Palmieri?
Present.
Mr. Sargent?
Present.
Mrs. Rivera?
Present. I need a
Mr.
motion for approval of the agenda with addendums.
Motion.
Ms. Vice President?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion.
Yes? I need a second.
I need to make a motion. I move we table number 6 in finance to give the board further opportunity to review the bid. The board will reconvene on Thursday, June 2nd for a special board meeting to take up this agenda item. Now, I understand the frustration with not providing a resolution as initially agreed upon by May 6th. But the reason for our delay has a multi-layer answer. First, we are reviewing the routes to make sure we are able to accommodate the maximum amount of private school students. We are also reviewing the routes to make sure that they are safe for our private school students as well as the entire community. This is not an easy process, and we are not leaving anything to chance.
I need a second. Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis? Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osman?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mrs. Parmelli for her superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivera. As tradition will have it, I would like to call up our high school board representatives to give their overview of their high school this month. This month, I would like to begin with Brooklyn from Liberty.
Thank you, Superintendent Parmelli, Board of Ed members, and guests. May has been an enjoyable month for us at Liberty. It started off with our seniors' decision day. They've all officially chosen the school they will be attending in the fall of this year, and we are very proud to see them sport their new attire representing their homes beyond Liberty. AP tests have been on a roll and just finished. After a long year of hard work for these students, they finally accomplished the toughest part of the course and feel good about their efforts and the preparations the teachers provided. The boys volleyball team is having a phenomenal season. They made it to the Final Four in the Shore Conference tournament after beating CBA, who was the number 2 team in the tournament. They start competing in states next week. The baseball team has also done well this year and are looking forward to the postseason play. The boys basketball team participated in the Holman Students vs. Staff basketball game and made it a fun night for everyone. It was wonderful seeing the boys help out the 5th graders and keeping the connections between the schools. The marching band has continued their hard work, this time hosting their famous Music in the Park series. Buses of schools from all over the state and outside states travel to perform at Liberty, and it's one of the highlights of the spring season. The Drama Club had a great night of fun in the beginning of May with their performance of The Wives of Henry VIII. The turnout was great, which helped make it a very successful night. We are now a little over a week away from JTV's 15th annual Ferronis. Since the last time this show was on a real stage dates all the way back to 2019, the theme this year is We're Back. Come out on May 27th at 6 o'clock for the red carpet show and 6:30 for a night of performances, awards, and more. One of the best memories from high school is always the dances. The junior class had a great formal this past Friday. We want to say a huge thank you to all of the teachers and staff who helped organize the night and make it fun for the students. We are looking forward to prom, which will be held on June 2nd. We know it will be an amazing night and one that will help kick off the many special events dedicated to the graduating class. We love our senior class, and as the days wind down, we are sad to see them leave. But one particular member of the class of 2022 deserves a special shout out. A big congratulations goes out to Alfred Galvin, who was awarded the Ocean County's Prosecutor's Office Unsung Hero Award. This is an award for overcoming adversity, and we are very proud. We know time is winding down, but Liberty shows no signs of slowing down. The energy is high as we are still in the middle of Spirit Week and are looking to schedule in a few more events to close the year out strong. We look forward to wrapping up another successful year and will continue to make the best out of every day we have left. Thank you for your interest and support in our school's happenings. It means more to us than you know. I hope you all have a great summer, and I have really enjoyed sharing the news on Liberty with you all this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooklyn. Dakota, could you please come and give your report for Memorial?
Good evening, Ms. Portmilly, board members, and central administration staff. The month of May has been a great coda to the year. Ahead of June, graduation, and summer vacation, I'm happy to say that we're ending off on an upswing. The seniors, led by Class President Brooke McCowan, have put together a comprehensive package of brilliant activities for our graduating class. The sending off ceremonies will take place over 4 days next month, before culminating in a wonderful 3 or 4 hour yearbook signing at Jack Munley Field right outside of the building, and then, of course, graduation. The senior class is lucky to have these things available for them to do, and everything from the first thing I updated this body on, the parking lot painting, to the senior walk through the elementary schools on June 1st. All of these things are brand new. So again, thank you Brooke McCowan and all our senior officers, Megan Barna, Phil Williams, Eric Ibe, Liz Jacoby, and Bella Mahabier, for the hard work they've put in over the past 4 years to make this time as special as possible. They did that with the help of the district, of course, which has been generous with providing many capital improvements to the school. The tennis courts, as some of you may have seen, are being repaved and remodeled, and we have just been issued new ID cards that are stronger and easier to carry than the previous set. The school administration has also done a wonderful job acknowledging and honoring Mental Health Awareness Month, and the school is filled with inspirational sayings that really help to strengthen not only the student body's understanding of mental hygiene, but also the state of the morale, which, while not low, has been bolstered tremendously by the full-throated support of our administration. On June 1st, the same day as the senior walk, we will also have scholarship night, something that I know every senior is looking forward to. While seniors graduating is often bittersweet, nights like scholarship night are reminders of how far the classes and the students have come. Different organizations from around the community have been gracious enough to provide financial gifts recognizing that development, and we look forward to cheering on all those who have been invited. Also, in the coming days and weeks is the last Spirit Week of the year, which will include everything from Adam Sandler Day to anything but a backpack day, and the eagerly anticipated Battle of the Classes, which will be held on the 26th. JMHS DECA will be holding its scavenger hunt and spikeball tournament next week and its banquet on June 6th. Officer elections are underway, and the results will be announced at that banquet. The JMHS FBLA chapter is planning a trip to Rutgers Business School on June 2nd, where they will tour the campus, listen to business leaders with connections to the university, and take part in a panel discussion with current Rutgers Business School students. They also look to build bridges with Chick-fil-A, which runs a leadership academy open to students looking to better themselves and their business acumen. The club intends to both participate in the academy and continue their profitable and delicious fundraisers with Chick-fil-A. Additionally, they have begun planning their 3 impact projects for the next school year, which is designed to make a clear difference in the school district for all students. The ROTC banquet will be held on June 3rd. They will celebrate the outstanding service of their cadets and their new leaders, Group Commander James Garr and Group Vice Commander Aiden Snedeker. The Student Council and the individual class officer teams will soon hold elections to determine their makeup for the next year. We will be accepting applications and nominations before they're decided on by the bodies they hope to represent, the students. Relevance is the fact that one of the elected officials will take my place here next year addressing the Board of Ed, so I recommend keeping an eye on the results to make sure they're good. The girls' track team had a good showing at the Ocean County Championships this weekend, led by a 3rd-place finish by Catherine Yalch in the 100-meter high hurdles. Kalia Fitch came in 5th in the 100-meter dash and 2nd in the 200-meter dash, while Lizzie Chan placed 5th in the long jump. The boys track team has also seen great results, with Steve Beta winning both the 100 and 200 meter dashes, and the 4x1 team also winning first place. The 4x8 team got second place, while high jumper Adam El Holy also earned first place with a height of 6'4". The girls golf team, in its inaugural season, beat Toms River North and Central Regional for the first 2 wins in team history. Bolstered by a strong showing by Chloe White, the team looks to challenge throughout the season. The baseball team has bounced back to become one of the top teams in Ocean and Monmouth counties, and as of right now, they are the only team in their division with the chance to win each of the 5 available championships. Highlights include pitcher Zach Crotchfeld, who hasn't let up a run since his first start, while the offensive side, Matt Koblos and Mike Aaron have lit up the conference with electric contributions, providing power from the middle of the lineup. Before I finish, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the JMHS retirees, of whom there are more than a dozen. They have served the school well over their tenures, and we wish them many adventurous days, long vacations, and happy years in the time ahead. Finally, I'd like to thank the superintendent, board, and central administration staff once again for having me speak here over the past few months. It's been a pleasure and at times an adventure to write and deliver the speech every month. Never before did I think I would actually want to say to see a budget proposal or come early to chat with board members, but being able to do this has been a wonderful opportunity. So thank you all for having me, and I suppose my successor will address you again in September. Have a pleasant summer, and thank you very much. Yeah.
So, Brooklyn and Dakota, if I could just ask you to stand for a minute. This is obviously likely your last meeting. I don't anticipate you'll be coming back after graduation for the June board meeting. You're welcome to, but I'm going to assume you may not be. But of course, you're always welcome. We love to have you here. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge your commitment to your schools and the district as a whole. Thank you for your leadership and for your commitment to keeping the board and the school district informed of all the happenings in the high schools. It has been a pleasure having you with us all year, and I wish you all the best for your future. Thank you for your commitment. I believe we're going to move forward with an agenda and approval, and then we'll come back to my superintendent's report. Before you make the motion to approve the agenda, Ms. Rivera, I would like to administratively remove students number 2 from the agenda this evening.
Motion.
I need a motion. Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to approve the agenda with addendums.
Motion.
Did we? So that's good.
I think we just did that, right, Ms. Richardson?
Yes, we did.
Okay, we're good on the approval of the agenda. So now to Ms. Pormilli's report.
Ms. Permilli.
Thank you. So just to continue with my superintendent's report, the last month, our students have been taking the New Jersey State Learning Assessments. It's been a busy time. They've been taking place in our schools. Many thanks to our testing coordinators and our administrative teams who have coordinated in all of our schools this very large task. We've also had, as you heard from some of the high school reps here, AP testing. That's a huge, significant accomplishment for our AP students as well. All of our students have been working hard on assessments this month, and congratulations to all of them. There's many great happenings across the district at every level right now. There has been dances, lots of athletics events occurring, junior formals, and we are now headed into concert season and student recognition events. It's a very exciting time. And we're looking forward to all the upcoming events having good weather for our 8th grade promotions and high school upcoming graduation. So cross your fingers. That would be wonderful to have good weather on top of those in-person events. Currently, our directors, supervisors, and staff are preparing for summer student support and enrichment programs. There are many things happening this summer. Please check out our website to see all of those wonderful things that are occurring. I'm also excited to announce that our preschool program, as you know, we received the grant, are expanding each year over 5 years. Next year, we'll be serving over 300 preschool students in our program, and that's all free preschool to our families. It's very exciting. As I believe both our high school representatives spoke about this evening, we have administered some new school ID cards. When Mr. Soto, our Director of Transportation, shared his tentative budget with the public and the board, he mentioned how we would be implementing some new technology in the district on our buses. As part of that initiative last night, our parents had received a communication about these new replacement student identification cards that the students would receive this week. The students already utilize student ID cards for a variety of uses in our schools, including purchasing food in cafeterias, signing in and out of guidance in the nurse's office, and borrowing from our school libraries. These new ID cards will continue to be used for those purposes, but also for a new purpose, to scan themselves on and off the district buses each day. Mr. Baginski has been leading the Student ID Card Initiative, so I was going to ask him to say a few words to our public about it and our board this evening. Mr. Baginski?
So as Ms. Vermilli said, we took a big step today. We distributed all the student IDs to the new student IDs that are going to work with our new transportation software on school buses. As we've gone through the process, we've already accomplished so much in the transportation department. This is just another next step for us, and there are more to come. Getting our students to scan in and out of the bus every day is a new thing for us, so we're going to need parents' assistance, educators' assistance as we try to build a new culture with that. It is a huge safety upgrade for us, and when we get this thing working to its full capacity, which we hope to do over the next couple of weeks, I think everyone's going to see a real difference in the safety component and also the efficiency of the buses. So as we move forward, there's going to be more to come with regard to a parent app that can also be used so that parents can see when their students get on and off the bus. So that is in the future as well, but this is another big step for us. And I'd like to he is not here tonight, but I would like to just give kudos to Mr. Soto and his staff and our bus drivers who have gone through a tremendous amount of change in a very short amount of time. It is impressive, and it is the way Jackson does things. It rises to the occasion. So, we're going to move right into the common lunch.
Well, yes, that's where I was going next. Good transition. So another topic we'd like to reinform the board and the public about this evening is a very long-term plan we've had now for 3 years that has been in place to implement a common lunch period at both our high schools for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Baginski and the high school principals, Mr. DiEugenio and Mr. Brignola, will provide that overview this evening. Mr. Baginski.
So, it's a pleasure to be here again with the Common Lunch. This is actually 4 years in the making. This was a proposed idea, proposed to the Board of Education on 2 different occasions previously. Unfortunately, it's been postponed due to the pandemic on a number of occasions, and tonight I'm here again and excited to present this fantastic idea once again, which is the common period for the high schools. I am joined, and I'm going to give you, and they're going to have a chance to talk to you as well in a couple of minutes, by both high school principals, and I would be remiss if I didn't take at least a small moment here to acknowledge the work of both Kevin DiEugenio and Jeff Brignola, our 2 leaders at the high schools. Every day they have 2,800 students come in and out their doors. They do a tremendous job. And this year and last year have been some of the most challenging times of anyone's careers. And they are steadfast leaders, and you're going to hear from them in a little bit. They are also excited about this initiative. So the common period began really 4 years ago with a broad committee that was formed at the time by Assistant Superintendent Ms. Permilli. And this group did their research, visited schools, they surveyed staff members, and that formal committee made a recommendation for the common period at that time. When they did this, it necessitated quite a bit of logistical planning and changes that included contractual changes, changes with food service, custodial, security, and administration. So we took a full year to plan that, and we were ready to go last June when we presented this to the Board of Education. And I will tell you that having the extra year has only strengthened our planning and made it so that we can even be more ready for this September. The plan is to communicate this plan to all of our stakeholders, starting tonight with the Board of Education, to our students and parents during the month of June, and for full implementation in September 2022. And so as we go through tonight's presentation, I'm going to hit on a couple of reasons why this Common Lunch was established and why we think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the high schools. When you take a look at all of the impacts that the Common Period can have, really it's about connecting kids to school in different ways and giving kids opportunities that they may not have had in the past because they couldn't stay after school. These things include being able to work in study groups, seek extra assistance, and complete missed assignments. So these are some of the things that I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail during the presentation. So the schedule itself, we created the time by shaving some of the time off of each of the class periods, also looking at the homeroom period and shaving that down to create a 60-minute common period, which would include lunch and also the opportunity to do all of these other things. So this common period would take place at the high school between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Teachers, the fifth period that existed previously for teachers would not be a scheduled time period anymore. School ends at 1:38. Faculty meetings would still occur after school at 1:45 to 2:45, and we would have created this time period that is the common period for 1 hour a day. On shortened days and delayed opening schedules, we've never served lunch in the past, and the intention would be to not have the common period on those shortened days. So lunch is obviously one of the big things that has to be accomplished during the common period, so students will have the opportunity to eat lunch at any time during the 60 minutes. Lunch will be available for purchase through the cafeterias, as they are now, but also available through different kiosks, vending machines in different locations in the school. The students will be responsible for disposing of their own garbage and trying to take care of the space. One of the unintended consequences here is really to get students to take more responsibility for themselves and also for their time management. Every student will be expected to be eating during the common period at some point, and eating will be prohibited in the classes. One of the other key components for this is offering the opportunity for extra help for students during the school day. And so students will be able to seek extra help during the common period because their teachers will be available on at least 3 days a week for half of the common period for extra help for students. Teachers will establish this schedule and location and then communicate it to students. And students will have to adjust their own time when they eat and when teachers are available to make sure that they can catch up with teachers if they need to. Students will also have the opportunity for drop-in assistance if it's permitted, if the teacher is available. So the extra help schedule, how it might look, and this is just a sample schedule for what a teacher's common period might look like. All of the teachers will have half of the common period to be able to eat lunch for a half-an-hour lunch. That is the teacher's time, teacher's lunch, and then the other half, 3 days a week, would be spent for extra help in the classroom, and 2 other days would be spent for a supervised study period. Perhaps they'd be assigned to a lecture hall or the media center. And so students will have to abide by the time limits. Obviously, everybody has to eat during that time period, so it'll be incumbent upon teachers to establish the schedule and students to follow it. The supervised study areas in the schools will be created, and we've kind of categorized them into 2 categories, quiet study areas and also social study areas. Quiet study areas will be places where students are expected to be quiet and working quietly to get work done. And social study areas would be where students could be engaged in polite conversation and also working together collaboratively. So these supervised study areas have been identified by the school administration, and they'll be communicated to students. Additional student supports will be available. We're taking the mindset of an all-hands-on-deck approach with regard to our support staff. And so during that common period, students will have the ability to meet with their guidance counselors, child study team, case managers, school nurses, media specialists, and paraprofessionals will also be assigned to be working during half of the common period. The idea here is that things that used to have to be accomplished during the school day, during an instructional period, can now possibly be accomplished during the common period. So taking that all-hands-on-deck approach really makes a very robust 60-minute time period where students can avail themselves of many different resources. So in addition to those academic opportunities, there are also opportunities for more participation in co-curricular activities. Co-curricular clubs, even athletic teams may choose to do some activities during the common period. These activities will be conducted under the supervision of a coach or the co-curricular advisor, and these will be a supplement to the regular activities that these clubs and teams already engage in. It's a nice way to keep kids connected to these clubs and offer a greater opportunity for participation for students who may not have been able to participate because of the time if they couldn't stay after school, or now it will be during the school day. Some of the non-certified staff members who are also will be working during the common period and helping to keep our environment safe and clean. Our school law enforcement officers will be expected to be on duty during the entire common period, custodians, lunchroom aides, and secretaries, with everybody available to support student needs during that common period. So before I turn it over to the high school principals, I just want to reiterate, all of these different opportunities for students really is what makes a connected experience for students. It's a great opportunity for students to connect with teachers, connect in clubs, and connected students are vested students in wanting to be successful, and it's something that we see as a tremendous opportunity to advance academics and advance socialization amongst our students at a time period where they desperately need it, coming off of the pandemic. So I'm going to turn it over to, first to Mr. D'Eugenio to give you a little bit of detail as to how he has been planning for the Jackson Memorial High School.
Thank you, Mr. Baginski, and good evening to the Jackson community. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about this common period. Just to give a little historical perspective, I don't know, there's some people who have been in this room, that are in this room, that have been students here. Does anybody know the last time we changed the high school schedule, what year that was? 1996. 1996, we actually, it was revolutionary to move to the 4x4 block schedule. And there were a lot of naysayers, a lot of doubters when we moved to the block schedule from the 8-period day. There was many public forums in this room, and it turned out to be a huge success. We were way ahead of the curve some 26 years later, as most schools in Ocean and Monmouth County have moved to the block schedule in some way, shape, or form. We did feel it was time to take a look at our schedule. Was there any new contemporary ideas? And that's where the common period came into play. We had the opportunity to visit Point Borough High School, who has this in place, Howell High School, and also Wall High School, so we could actually see this in action. And as Mr. Baginski said, we saw curriculum strengthened, we saw students getting extra help in classes at all three of those high schools. We saw the fine and unified arts with a lot of participation, students in band rooms, students in art classrooms, and we saw really students having some social time where they could be together in large common areas. And we felt that this is something that we could bring to the Jackson School District and benefit our students, not only for academic support, but for strong social support. Do we have some challenges? I appreciate the work of our staff here at Jackson Memorial. We have a common period group who speak often. We had a meeting last month. And we're trying to work out the frequently asked questions now so that we're prepared for September. The board has been great in providing the furniture needed, as you can see in these slides. This is furniture that we've used this year in the hallways, and it's been a sort of transition to the common period. We moved students out of the cafeteria and into the adjacent hallways. Students love these high tops. This is an idea that we actually got from Point Borough High School. Their colors are black and gold. I kind of like the black and red a lot better. But our students are seen in these areas, 30 to 40 students at a time. Believe it or not, outside dining is something very popular here at Jackson Memorial. You see the tents that are around the building. A day like today, you would have had 30 or 40 students out in these outside areas. We'll be expanding the footprint here at Memorial. We have some unique spaces that we're going to be able to utilize right here in Fine Arts. We have the large landing areas that are going to provide 2 additional eating areas for our students. We already have that furniture, and that's also ready to go. But I think most importantly is the stakeholders, the students themselves. At any of our student council meetings that we have monthly, in the beginning of the year, their first question was, are we doing the unit lunch? And I said, no, we're not able to do that with the pandemic. But as we talked, the springtime came around and we were able to speak with the students, and the reality is coming into play that they have this opportunity to work with their clubs for extra time during the day, to go seek out extra help from teachers. Some of our AP students saw this as an opportunity for study sessions, additional time there. They were very excited, and they're really excited about September and what that brings. So with that, we have obviously some more planning to do. I'm sure there may be some unforeseen rough edges that we're going to work out. But we do have a committee in place. We meet at the end of this month again to ask those frequently asked questions, things like evacuation drills we'll be working on, and things along those lines. But for right now, I think we're in a very good place here at Memorial. All the furniture is here, the infrastructure is in place. Our staff has bought in, and they understand the needs as well. But most importantly, that's our stakeholders. The 1,500 students that are in the building are really excited about this opportunity. So thank you very much for letting me share some of the vision of Jackson Memorial High School, and those are just some slides of what we currently are doing. Mr. Brignola.
I don't know how much I can add to that. He pretty much hit on every single topic. The one thing I want to say is how excited we are to have this because of the fact that the 5th period that we used to have wasn't being utilized as we needed to be utilized. And this is going to allow us to academically really find those kids who are struggling, need that extra help, and for lack of a better term, capture them and get them that help. Whether they were going home to work or watch some siblings or something, now that, which are legitimate reasons not to be able to stay after school, now we can really focus on getting them to the teachers that can help them during their office hours. The other part, well, let me also click through here. This is still some Memorial spaces that they're going to be using for the common lunch. And then, that's the fine arts area right outside. So, and we have very similar things. Mr. DiEugenio was speaking about the outside courtyards are very popular. Mr. Baginski came over the other day, and we were looking at our art courtyards that we could probably utilize because they are such big spaces. It would be a furniture issue that we would have to start looking into to utilize that space, but it's beautiful out there, and it's a lot of space, and the kids love to eat outside when it is nice. You can see that our main hallway, we call it the grand hallway, is giant. We actually have our homecoming dance there, and it fits everybody. So we did, thanks to the board, to be able to get a lot more of the cafeteria tables that we fill that up with during the lunch periods. So now we have our 3 cafeterias with cafeteria tables, and then our grand hallway as well. And then these are some of the areas that we might use, or we will use for our supervised study areas, our IMC, our library, our lecture hall, and our auditorium. With the library and lecture hall mainly focusing on quieter study areas, and the auditorium. And we will also use the gym for some more social supervised study areas. The other thing I wanted to mention was the ability to get the students more immersed in the school culture. Some of our numbers in our clubs and our sports have dropped, whether that's pandemic related or some of the circumstances of the family life that some of these kids have at home. It's a little combination of both, but I think with this common period where we're able to have the kids in the school that we can contact, focus on, and get them involved with some of these extracurricular and co-curricular activities will help really build those programs. I'm not sure if there's any, oh, that is the last slide. So I guess if there's any questions, we will be more than happy to answer. Yes?
I have questions. Can I ask Mr. D?
Yeah.
Thanks. It's odd asking your old history teacher questions. So I have
Sure.
I have a few thoughts with this and a lot of concerns with this, because everything you guys said sounds really good, but it's really geared to the self-starting student. And we all know not every student is a self-starter. So you're taking what's currently, what do you guys have, like a 22-minute lunch or something? Like
28 minutes.
28-minute lunch. And now you're changing it to but each student, 28-minute lunch. Now you're changing it to 60 minutes. How are you going to be encouraging the non-self-starter student to take advantage of getting extra help, doing your homework, when, I'm just thinking of one of my own sons, and he's going to be in your lunchroom for 60 minutes, and I'm probably going to get a few phone calls because he's getting himself in trouble because now he has 60 minutes. So I actually have 3 questions. Do you want them all at once, or?
Sure. Let me start off with the support part of this. I think it's really important. In Mr. Baginski's slide, he talked about support staff. All guidance counselors are going to be on duty. All child study team members are on duty to take appointments. And I think it's really important that a struggling student or a student that's not focused becomes a priority for our guidance counselors. That they schedule appointments and make sure those students are accountable for their grades so that they are attending these appointments to be made up. The office hours, I think, are additionally important. That students, can we make them go to these appointments? Probably not, but I think we need to monitor our at-risk students and make sure that the guidance counselors are doing all the things in their power to make sure they do attend office hours that the teachers have. It's just like with the 20-minute, the after-school period that used to go to 2:20. A lot of students, frankly, wouldn't stay. Now we have a captive audience. They're here for that time period, and it gives us, I think, a better opportunity to gather them for that extra help and that extra support.
Also, kids in the high schools who have early dismissal, are they now losing these 60 minutes where they can or cannot? There's still going to be kids who choose not to do the great things that you're offering. So now are they getting early dismissal plus an hour? I mean, they already come home at noon, the early dismissal kids. So are they part of this?
Well, remember, the 4 periods are still intact. And the nice thing about this schedule is where we have 2 hours of disruption, if you say, during the day, changes for 4 lunches. The nice thing about this is that in 1 hour, it will all be completed and encapsulated. And the break point of our lunch perfectly aligns with VOTEC, arrival and dismissal. It was almost a byproduct of how this fleshed out. It worked almost perfectly. So that's going to be a positive. In terms of early release, there would be no early release until the end of the 3rd period.
Which is the same time.
Same time as it is currently, correct. Yep.
And then, what was my other one? Okay, yes. So the schools that you said you were comparing us to, Wall, Point, are they about the same size schools that we are?
Howell is 2,200.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep. Howell 2,200, Wall around 1,200, similar to Liberty. Borough a little smaller, 850. Yeah.
And last question. So now the big thing, at least in higher ed, are nudge strategies. Everybody has to use nudge strategies to get people to do what you want them to do. If you're putting something in place like this, are you going to have professional development for these nudge strategies that are appropriate to get those really difficult kids who just aren't going to say, I want extra math help when I could be hanging out with my friends?
Like we said, it's an evolving process for us, and we're going to certainly monitor and adjust as we go through the year. And I don't want to say one size fits all with this common lunch period or this common period, because Howell does it a little differently than Wall, that does it a little differently than Point Borough. And we're going to make it Jackson's way. We've had these discussions with our staff. So in terms of the at-risk student, I think that is an area where we're going to need to focus on, because the availability of support staff, I think, is precious. It's precious time. So we will make sure with our directors of guidance and our child study teams that those students' needs are addressed. And obviously there's always the parent that could email us and say, hey, look, there's 30 minutes here that my student's not taking advantage of. Can you encourage that? And we certainly will.
But nothing's going to be in place that says if your average is below a certain percentage, like if you're a kid who has a 70 or 75 average in math or English, that you have to go twice a week, 3 times a week.
We're not starting off as mandating it, but our rule of thumb always is that a student that's less than C, needs that nudge or that attention, as you say. That's been our motto here.
And I also want to add that the part where you were saying that maybe your son will just say, I'm going for 60 minutes. We do feel that some students on some days need that, especially with what we've gone through. And that social part of it is very important to us. If that person did need that extra help, would we encourage and nudge that person to go for those office hours with the teacher? Absolutely, yeah.
Last one, sorry. Do you guys feel that you have enough guidance counselors and support staff where they would really be able to recognize this kid hasn't been getting extra help and, you know, his grades are around that C?
Yeah, and I think that's where communication is going to be really important to start off the year. You know, that we, as building level administrators, lay out our expectations to staff on what we want to see done in those offices. And again, the struggling student is certainly going to be a priority for academics. But again, I take this as a whole school program because it's going to be for the student who hasn't participated in student council, and that's a student council meeting that they can actually go to. The kid who wants to try the art club, he can actually do that part of it. And if a kid wants to go to office hours for his teacher, he has the ability to do that. And there be a little bit of growth for a student that has to take their own responsibility. That's where this, to me, feels more like a college experience than most students. Because the number one thing I hear from students when they come back from college is, wow, I can't believe how much time I have. And in high school, you don't. It's very regulated. So I think this is a fresh look at a high school schedule. Like I said, it's been the same for 26 years. So I think it's a move in the right direction. I really do.
So I have a question. In terms of personnel, and the personnel I'm thinking of is more so cafeteria, security, lunch aides, custodial. They're going to have to now contend with hundreds of students out and about throughout the entire school and outside simultaneously for 1 hour. Are we expanding on our hiring for them? Are we going to provide them additional support and resources so they can get the school cleaned up and in order in a timely fashion, or are we going to stretch them very thin?
So these guys are good soldiers, so they're not going to say they need and want, but I will tell you that we are very receptive to whatever the two gentlemen behind me feel like they need to make this successful. And it could be additional lunchroom aides, it could be additional custodians, it could be just restructuring what time we bring people in terms of custodians. So I will tell you, those kinds of decisions, as we get closer, are going to become more important, and we're not going to hesitate to make the decisions we need to do to make this program successful.
As of now, we're going to run it as is without additional hires unless we're told that's what's
and I
needed.
think the phrase I used is all hands on deck. When we're going to go from 4 lunch periods, where we kind of have things spread out over a longer time period, to condensing it to 60 minutes, we also are condensing all of our staff. So none of our non-instructional staff are going to be eating lunch at that time. They are working during that 60 minutes. So really maximizing the people we have at that time.
Just one more comment. Yeah, we've met with Joe Immordino, Food Services. We had several meetings with him to talk about food distribution points. Obviously, the fine arts area being a new distribution point, we have about a 4-point plan in place to feed students here with some additional workers, but certainly additional service. I wouldn't want students waiting around because the service areas weren't available. We've had multiple discussions with Food Services.
And another point on that is when we went to the other schools, they all said the first couple of weeks were chaos because that's when the kids figure out, all right, I'm going to go to lunch now, or am I going to go do extra time now with a teacher, or am I going to have my social? So they don't all eat at the same time. They kind of figure out when the best time is for them to eat, and it kind of morphs into a cohesive schedule where they know when the best time is for them to eat, when the lines are the best for them, that type of thing. So it's not all students at the same time going for lunch. Just it can't happen that way.
One last one. I know I said that before, but just thought of one. So the other schools that you looked at, I'm guessing that after COVID, did they have this back in place? Because during COVID, there was a lot of learning gaps that resulted in kids learning online, not coming to school. So now you are giving them the option of 60 minutes of we'll encourage you, but we can't require you to go for help. Is this going to add or decrease those already learning gaps that every parent is seeing right now?
The part about we're going to ask you, I think it's going to be a little bit more strict than we're going to ask you. It's going to be a harder request than just a hard nudge, and that's where the communication comes in, I think. If a teacher is talking to the guidance counselor saying, you know, this student is having a lot of trouble, I need you to talk to them, and we'll talk about, obviously the teacher's going to be talking about coming for that extra help. And if we're having an issue where we're finding that student just not doing it, obviously we're going to be in touch with the parents, letting them know the best chance that they have for success in this class is to utilize this period. You know, if the parent is not going to get on board with that does make it a little bit difficult, but I think with our strong nudging, I think we're going to have success with that, yes. To answer your question, I don't know what Wall, Howell,
Point Borough is definitely back to their.
Yeah, I didn't know how they
spoken to them,
started,
but I
I
can't
don't know.
speak on how or them.
I'd just like to make one more comment about that is, obviously, our teachers know their students super well as well, and I've experienced this in some other locations as well, and the teacher says to the student, I expect to see you at my office hours this week. And then they have to see that teacher in class that next day too. So then there's a follow-up with that of, I didn't see you at my office hours. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to fix that? So there's a lot of communication between teachers, guidance counselors, administration, and then individually with the student, and really allowing that student to grow and mature over time to get to a place where they do take the ownership on themselves. It's a process for some students, we know that. But I'd just like to compliment the team who has been working and strengthening this along with their staff for several years now. And I think, you know, we were all disappointed that we needed to put it on hold, but sometimes things happen, and for this, it was a good reason we got to spend more time even fine-tuning it. I think it's going to roll out relatively well. We'll always have bumps, and we'll tweak and adjust. So thank you all for your hard work on this. Are there any other board questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with the last item on my superintendent's report is an update on our non-public transportation process. So this evening, Ms. Richardson will give a review of the process and a reminder of the process that we're required to follow for our transportation of non-public students. So, Ms. Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Pomeli. Back in February, we gave a presentation, and this is kind of going to bring that same presentation up, but we have actual dates that we've added to it. Basically, we're hoping that this would provide some context and background about the transportation process and the ways that we are working to serve Jackson students. Again, I want to remind everybody that to understand the law, because we get questions about this all the time, so we like to always bring it up. The law requires Jackson to offer either transportation or what is known as aid in lieu of transportation to eligible students who wish to attend a nonprofit school within 2 to 20 miles from their Jackson home. If it's a high school student, it's 2.5 miles. We accomplish this in a number of ways. We utilize district buses, which we have for many years, and drivers, and then sometimes we have to contract out the routes. And then also we will enter into a jointure with another school district. We've done that over time also. If the options that are allowed by law cannot be accomplished within the specific cost established each year by the Department of Education, which right now is $1,000 per student, then the district must offer students aid in lieu of transportation, which is paying the $1,000 directly to the parent so that they can find transportation for their student. The first slide I want to talk about are the parent and guardian responsibilities, which we also talked about in February. The parents are responsible to complete a form. It's called a B6T form, which we all know. It's an application for private school transportation for each student in their home. They submit this form to the private school, or, as we started this year, they're submitting the B6T directly to us electronically, which is, we just implemented that this year and it went very well. The second thing that a parent is responsible for is to complete what's called a B7T form. This is a request for payment of transportation aid. It requires that we do both forms, and I know this is new. We had a discussion about that because we did not know that we were supposed to be doing that, but as of this last payment, we made sure that we were doing that. That is submitted directly to the school district, and a new thing we're going to start this period is to do that electronically also, so that our parents can have a receipt. You'll get information about that very soon. Any B6T that application that is received after March 10th is considered late, a late application. Eligible students will receive transportation or AIL based upon the date of the application as received by the school district. And hopefully we've cleared up a lot of those issues. The private school responsibilities. The school year before, and this is a long process because it's March of the year before the school district, the school year that we're talking about. Normally in the law it says that they have to collect the B6Ts. We streamline that by collecting it ourselves and getting that list to the private school so that they could review it to make sure that all of their students complied with it. And as I said, that worked very well this year. This is our first year doing it this way. The school year also, the school is responsible for sending us the times of their school, what time they come in the morning, what time they let out in the evening, and giving us their school calendar, because different schools do different dates, and they're responsible for letting us know that. And throughout the school year, in January and May, we will send to them a form. It's called a B8T form with a list of all of their children, and they have to say that those are the children that go to their school and they've been in attendance, and send that back to us with the B8T form, and making sure we're aware that we're still doing that also. Throughout the school year, they have to also advise parents that if you're new here, you have to get a B6T form to the public school district to let them know that you're here and you may qualify for transportation. Also, they notify parents of those responsibilities because they're the first ones to see the parents new to their schools. So this next slide shows you the district's responsibility. Now, this is just what the law says about what our responsibilities are. We are to date stamp the forms as we receive them. We're also to prepare the non-public school routes and put the routes out to bid. That's our responsibility. We have to notify parents by August 1st as to whether or not they have a route or if they have aid in lieu. Throughout the school year, January, May, we're to take the BAT forms that the schools send to us and agree with them or not agree with them, whatever the case may be. And the last thing is that throughout the school year that we will send parents a B7T form to have them prove that they want to be reimbursed for their B6T form. And that is our responsibility. So now I want to get to the updated timeline of 2022. Because of all the discussions we've had since February and prior to that, it was in February when we told everyone that we were going to increase the timeline decrease the timeline actually, and make it more efficient for people to get this information sooner, even though the law says we did not have to do this until August 1st, of course. So we developed our own online B6T form to provide instant receipts to families and expedite the data entry and informational organization. That worked splendidly. We had about 3,700 students in and that's before some did not qualify and things like that, but it was 3,700, so it was a monumental task, and I appreciate all of the non-public families who took the time to make sure everyone participated in this process, because it was very good, very good. And in March, that's when they were all due by March the 10th, I believe, is the actual day that they were due. But we had to take the time to now, even though process all of these and, like I said, get that list out to the schools to say, hey, this is what we got for your school. And then we also prepared for our bids. We were able to put the routes together based on all the information that we received, and we prepared for our bids. Our bids were due back in April 28th. The bids came back to us. It was a long process. It takes 21 days for us to get a bid together because of the all the steps that you have to go through in getting that to the county superintendent. And we did receive one bid for 24 routes from Jay's Bus Service. We had 5 bidders pick up, but only one bid came in. So that's, 24 routes that were picked up. In May, which we are in now, the board is evaluating the bid and contract. We had a special meeting on May 16th where the board spent time talking and going through the contract and seeing where we were. And we were aiming for a May 6th response to the parents, which we said back in February, but that we were going to secure the routes because we thought with the April 28th bid opening that May 6th would be enough time, but we're still discussing it. And as Mr. Palmieri mentioned earlier in this meeting, that we're going to have another meeting on June the 2nd, and where the board will still be finalizing the contract and the bid. Soon after that date, we will be able to notify parents exactly where we are as far as the routes and AIL. June 30th, of course, is the deadline for B-7Ts. We'll be sending out a notice about the B-7Ts tomorrow and the new process that we want everyone to follow. Regarding the next slide, please. Regarding route bidding and contract evaluation, I've had a lot of questions about this, and I want to be clear. The district was able to streamline the B6T process through online B6T forms, through the efficient cooperation of our non-public families. This expedited the verification process and time of my staff, especially. The state-imposed deadline to receive B6Ts is March 15th, and after that, we must verify the eligibility of 3,700 applicants and designed routes for each student. We prepare bid specifications as required by the law. Bidding is a 21-day process, as I said, and must be approved by the county superintendent. We receive and evaluate bids and determine if rebidding is an option. We determine which routes will not be rebid. These routes will go directly to AIL after they've been bid the first time. Then the last step is we submit the bids to the Board of Ed for their review and approval, and that's where we are today. The Board of Ed must evaluate all bids received in accordance with New Jersey contract law. They have to ask, does the vendor's bid meet the bid specifications? Is the bid cost within the state maximum not to exceed $1,000 per student? Is the vendor a New Jersey state-approved bus vendor? If yes to all of that, then the district is required to award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder within 60 days of the bid opening. Our mission here in Jackson, we are committed to following the laws related to non-public transportation, serving the students of Jackson Township safely and efficiently, continuing to solicit feedback from all stakeholders about how we can continue to improve our processes and procedures, and keeping the lines of communication open. As a district, we have committed to strengthening our procedures regarding non-public transportation, improving our communication channels, and creating a sustainable model that will grow and adapt to the needs of all Jackson families. And right below there is just the website, just in case you're the one person who doesn't know that. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Ms. Richardson, I'd just like to maybe reiterate what I had stated earlier today. Maybe I think it ties in well with this. I understand the frustration with not providing a resolution as initially agreed upon by May 6th. But the reason for our delay was multi-layered It has a multi-layered answer. First, we are reviewing the routes to make sure we are able to accommodate the maximum amount of private school students that we can. We are also reviewing the routes to make sure that they are safe for our private school students as well as our entire community. This is not an easy process, and we are not leaving anything to chance. And may I add, we are not delaying anything because we want to delay anything. We are not kicking the can down the street, so to speak, because we want to do so. We're doing it because we want to make the best decision that will accommodate the most students that we can. And I also want to be clear on something. And I look at it this way, and I know this board does as well. If you're a student of Jackson, regardless if you're private or public, you are a student of Jackson. There is no difference to us. We care for everyone the same, and we look to be fair and consistent with everyone. The board makes these decisions. Ms. Permilli is not a voting member of this board, so it is us who chooses to make this decision. It was us who chose to make a slight delay, but I think this delay will be a better impact overall, especially for our private school students, because we're trying to maximize those routes to get as many as possible to and from school safely. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, you said the special meeting is June 2nd, right? But it's a public meeting. So
It is a public meeting.
I just wanted to clarify that that's a public meeting on June 2nd for that agenda.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson, for the information and for everybody's comments on the topic. That does conclude my superintendent's report for this evening. Ms. Rivera?
Thank you, Ms. Permelli. State Standing Committee reports, State and County Board Representatives. The next county meeting will be May 24th at the Clarion Hotel. Melissa Brown, one of our staff members here in Jackson, will be presenting on best practices. Parent Group Liaison, next meeting will be fall 2022, date to be determined. Special Education, Dr. Osmond.
Our next meeting for the Special Education Committee will be fall of 2022. That date, we'll get it soon, and as soon as we have it, we'll let you know.
Scholarship, the scholarship night will be Jackson Memorial, June 1st. There'll be lots of scholarships awarded. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Sargent.
Currently, we have construction going on at the tennis courts, and so far they look beautiful. Thank you.
Budget and Finance, Ms. Barakis.
Since our last Budget and Finance meeting, since we went over the budget at the last meeting, we haven't had a meeting since, but I'm sure we will have one upcoming.
Transportation, there'll be a June meeting and date to be determined. Curriculum Committee.
Again, last meeting, everything was covered. We did a full presentation, so we haven't met since then.
Policy Committee, Mr. Palmieri.
Yeah, so the Policy Subcommittee convened on May 10th. In attendance was Mr. Baginski, Ms. Permilli, Ms. Rivera, Mr. Walsh, and myself. Policies that were discussed and reviewed: record keeping for healthcare settings in school buildings, that is new and mandated by the state. Postnatal accommodations for students, which is a new policy. Student intervention and referral services, which is actually a revised policy and mandated by the state. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying was revised and mandated by the state. Emergency and crisis situations was a revised policy and also mandated by the state. As always, all of the district's policies can be located on our district webpage for full review. Thank you.
Thank you. Enrollment Study Committee, their meeting date to be determined. I need a motion for approval of the minutes of the closed session meeting, April 27th, 2022, and the official board meeting, April 27th, 2022, Committee of the Whole business meeting, and the official board meeting, May 3rd, 2022, of special board meeting.
Motion. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of bill list.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the treasurer's and board secretary's reports.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to open the public forum on agenda items only. We will hold another public forum during the meeting for other questions. This public forum will be for questions on the agenda only.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you're a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until all others have been heard.
Ms. Richardson, do you want these, or you just want them to come up?
If this is for the agenda, the first person on here is Gus Acevedo.
Gus Acevedo, 18 Bryant Drive. It's good to hear you speak about block scheduling, because when we started the concept, we were the first in Ocean County, and there were questions, there was doubt because of the length of time about that special child who might not be able to handle it. And you know what? It worked. It was, everybody thrived. It needed some work, but it worked out. And last month I mentioned that how I'm wondering why this school district is not number one when it should be. And I expect it to be a blue ribbon. I know it can be because of the leadership we have in our superintendent. And you saw the gentleman who spoke before. Those are our soldiers, those are our officers, and they're extraordinary. The board can follow these and lead them at the same time. We are righteous when it comes to wanting everyone to get a good education. Now, the thing is, I spent years in a school that experimented with what we call the common period now. Here, it was called the flex period. It was at Monsignor Donovan High School. Parents asked the same questions you asked, Dr. Osmond. You know, what do you do with that kid? What happens, just like Mr. Eugenio said, the first couple of weeks, kids wander. They've never had this much freedom. However, they learn to own their freedom, and they know they've wasted it, and before you know it, they're all working. What happens that's good, it's that kids get to see each other where they never had the opportunity, because if they didn't belong to that club, that team, that classroom, now the school shares itself, becomes community. So it is actually an excellent idea. You actually can go to clubs you never thought you'd show up to, and everyone has an opportunity to thrive, to study, to participate. So I commend the idea of the common period. It is what forward-looking schools do, and we have to keep doing that. Now, another concern I have is, I mentioned also about the peer mediation that we used to have in I think we have again, yes? Okay, the thing is, my personal opinion is it should not be only to remediate, but to mediate. That is, there's a problem, we deal with it, that's after the fact, ex post facto. Now, if we do things like we're doing now, before the problem arises, like I see that we, Don is going to be the civil rights, what is your title? Your new title? You're going to be, your new title.
He's an affirmative action officer for the school
Yeah,
district.
yeah.
That's an annual approval. Yes.
And we must understand that we must reach out, not because it's what we need to do, but we have to do it. It's got to come from the heart. And I
Mr.
suggested,
Acevedo,
yes,
I'm sorry, your time is run out. You can
Yeah, I'll come back.
You can get back in line after this.
I'll come back.
Okay. Sarah Freund, if this is about the agenda, otherwise I'll call you when we do the regular public. Is this about the agenda? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sarah Freund. I believe it's on the agenda. We spoke about the busing and the timeline and everything like that, so I believe it comes into contact with that. I just want to say first, thank you for considering it. We're still so eternally grateful and just very grateful, so I want to make sure that that's said and noted. Obviously, we don't have as many representatives because they've entrusted us to come, and of course, if needed, everyone would show up. I see that, we had, the statement made was that we'd be notified as of May 6th what was happening, and then as the reps were explaining that it's just life comes up and different, things come up. But then in the mission statement, it said, that was up there a few moments ago, that we believe in keeping the lines of communication open. So when we were told that we'd be notified as May 6th, I understood that it's possible that we won't get our exact definitive answer by then, but we'd be notified of something. And we were told nothing. And we patiently waited. We very much trusted, I know I did, trusted the words of the people here, what we were told, and to get zero information. A lot of us emailed, we called, we sent as many messages as we could, and got nothing in return. My mother taught me that if I'm running late to an appointment, around 10 minutes before that appointment, I'll know I'm running late, and I'll call. And not because someone works for me or I work for them or they deserve it or not, but because we're people. And people have feelings and things they have to get done. And it's important, if we're going to respect each other, to respect the fact that we told you you'd be notified. Notify us. And if we email, respond. If you're running late, a heads up. I know I give it to everybody. I give it to anybody because they're a person. And even if I don't know their situation or what they're going through, they deserve that information. So I'll give you a little background on what I'm going through. I have 4 kids. And if I'm not going to have busing, I need to pay those vans that I have to arrange, the very not safe vans, but I don't have a choice. I mean, they're not safe, but they're not as safe as buses. I need to let them know weeks ago. I'm getting phone calls. Are you paying? You need to pay in advance. It's thousands of dollars for each child. And we're all sitting there going, I want to give you an answer. You deserve an answer. But I'm waiting for the Board of Ed to get back, and they're not answering the emails. And I honestly don't know what to tell you, but I need to lay out the money. So I'm left going, let me see if we can put together some money to pay the vans already. And assuming I'll lose that money, because I'm believing that we're going to have the busing, it's a mad circus. And our government today is very good at giving us the runaround, and we'll get to you later, and we'll circle back. And I really trust that Jackson Township's not part of that circus. And I really want to keep believing that, because I like to believe it. It's a happier way to believe, but I'm stuck because I didn't get any answers. And yes, there are safety concerns, and I appreciate you taking our children's safety so seriously, because it's a serious thing. But not having busing for these kids is a lot less safe, I can assure you. Having 3,000 students' parents in their own cars, the traffic, the accidents, that's also a big concern.
Sarah,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
I
your
will
time is up.
Stop right there. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Ms. Permilli, could I respond? So Sarah, I want to say, and I would like to extend an apology from the entire board to every parent that this affected, that the May 6th delay may have affected. We did give you a May 6th date, and we dropped the ball. The board dropped the ball on communicating that we needed additional time to try to get additional routes secured so we can maximize the effectiveness of how many students we can pick up to drop off. So we own it. We're learning. This is our first real year that we're trying to accommodate this influx of private school students. And we're willing to take on that challenge. So we apologize for that. We will work on that. I can assure you that the delay will impact you in a more beneficial way, because we're looking to accommodate additional students. You're going to hear more about that at the June 2nd meeting. We will be ahead of schedule in terms of what the law states with August 1st guaranteed, because I know and I can tell you we will not be able to accommodate all 3,700 students this year. But we're looking to accommodate as many as we can, and those that we cannot will be notified very quickly as soon as we can get this June 2nd finalized. So give us a few more weeks. We apologize for the May 6th not communicating. And if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to any of us via email. We're always available. And I would just wanted to once again say I apologize. Thank you for bringing it up. We are not taking it lightly, and we really want what's best for the entire community. The entire community, because we are one community. So we're working together as one. Thank you.
Mrs. Grushkin?
Mr. Vera, I just wanted to respond to one of those points. I want to reiterate again correctly, as Mr. Palmieri said, we do apologize for the lack of communication. We were trying to get a communication together that would provide all of the accurate information, and with that, it got delayed. And we should have communicated with you. So we'll work on that. As far as being ignored, you're not being ignored is, in fact, I think this district has worked hard to really clean up its process, making things electronic, putting a lot of other things in place, a website in place with a question email that you can email directly B6T questions to Jackson, immediately get some responses within a week there for individual questions. We've really worked to streamline processes, but there's always room for improvement, and we understand that, and that's what we continue to strive for. In regards to the submission by email, Ms. Gruskin, I know we spoke on the phone, and I have communicated with the office, and you should be getting a response to that very soon. So that is being addressed. I just wanted to follow up with you on that. Thank you.
Sarah Robinson?
Hi, good evening. I just had a few questions. I appreciate very much the timeline that really broke everything down so we can see what's going on, which is very important to us. And my question is like this: based on my understanding of how the timeline went, the time for the Board of Ed determining which routes they are picking up already passed, and the time for deciding which routes can be rebid is already passed, and we were told that where we're at now is the vote on those bids. So if 24 routes were picked up, that need to be voted on, all the rest of the routes, the Board of Ed already determined that they're not picking up because we were just told that that time has passed, and determining which routes can be rebid, that time has passed also. So why are we not, why don't all the rest of the routes get told that they're not being picked up already now? Why do we have to wait until we vote on that bid, whether or not those routes are going ahead or not? That's 24 routes. There are way more routes. I don't know the number. I think someone mentioned it. I didn't hear it clearly and I wasn't able to write it down. But just mathematically, maybe I missed something, but based on that timeline, how it was explained, from my understanding, all the remaining routes are not being picked up. We were told just now that time has passed for Board of Ed deciding and for seeing if any additional routes can be bid or if the routes can be rebid. So if that happened, can all the remaining routes be told? That would take a lot of the burden. We know that many of the routes are not going to get picked up. So every route that's already, been passed on can know. That will be a really lot of many happy parents. Even though they're not getting busing, but they can know now in May. Also, I would like to ask, the May 6th date gave us a lot of hope, and I understand this is how things work. It's really understandable that things take more time. However, can we get a new date? I know that the meeting is June 2nd, I believe. That's an open meeting, and I'm sure after that there will be steps necessary to be taken. But can there be a new date that is, really, when you got that May 6th, we were able to say, okay, by May 6th, we'll give our van drivers an answer. By May 6th, we'll know. Since we can't do that yet, can we tell the van drivers, okay, by June 19th, we can give you that answer? Can we get a date? Okay.
June 2nd is the vote.
June 2nd is the vote, right. So if that's the vote, then can you give us a date that by June 19th or whatever, how many days you need after that vote to give us whichever routes are left, can we get a new date? I don't imagine that June 2, if that's the date, then we could all know, then great. But if you will need additional time to, publish that or whatever it is, then can there be a new date? So both, can there be a new date, and can all the routes that are already passed on, can those be informed? Thank you. Have a great night, and I know it's a lot of work. I work in administration, so thank you.
So, thank you. And it will depend on the vote about the communication of what gets communicated after that. So I'm hesitant to give a date, but I would say we're aiming for shortly after that board meeting, be able to communicate definitely more information. But again, I can't make a solid date there with not knowing. It depends on what the vote is in order to be able to set any kind of communication afterwards. But we will Lesson learned, communicate shortly after the board meeting of exactly what transpires. And look to make the decisions as soon as we can after that decision.
Tom Riley.
Hi, Tom Riley. Couple things. First, the common time, brilliant idea. Second thing, I want to give a shout out to the Johnson School faculty, staff, and PTO for throwing a daddy-daughter dance last week. It was wonderful. But what I'm here to talk about today is the release of the lead testing report. The United States Environmental Protection Agency sets regulatory limits on all water pollutants. The EPA states that no level of lead in drinking water is safe. Though they do admit that with current technology, achieving the goal of 0 parts per billion is difficult. They do allow some leeway. The EPA requires entities and institutions to perform action if the levels exceed 15 parts per billion. Lead is a potent neurotoxin. Lead also causes a litany of other physiological effects. Do you know that children absorb lead at least twice as much as adults? A study released by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science last month estimated that the lead exposure of children born before 1982 lowered the IQ of children by an average of 2.6 points and persisted into adulthood. While lead is less pervasive than it was in the past, the effects of lead are well documented. The district released the lead testing results at all 10 schools. Each source had a sample taken upon initial flow of the water and a sample taken after a 30-second flush. There was a total of 916 samples. The list of actionable sites, okay, that's greater than 15 parts per billion, was almost 4 pages long. That was 80 of them. Okay, that's 1 out of every 11 samples. There were another dozen or so that came back at greater than 10, but less than 15 parts per billion. One room at Switlick tested at 511 parts per billion on initial draw. Luckily, it was only 15 after the flush, but how many people wait 30 seconds for their water? Okay. The report was more than unsettling. Frankly, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. Not only is this a danger for children, it's a danger for the faculty, staff, and administrators as well. This is why we educators say our working conditions are your child's learning conditions. I don't expect much from my local government, but I do demand clean water and I do demand good schools, and Jackson has great schools. This is why I live here. But I want you to provide a permanent solution to the water problem. Putting up a sign that says hand washing only, don't drink, doesn't really mean that much to a teenager, right? Teenagers are not known for being compliant. Does the sign state the reason why it's out of service or why it's only hand washing only? Do they know that's because of high levels of lead? Okay, no one's flushing the water every day, 30 seconds times 458 sites. Filtration cartridges, not a permanent solution. They're prone to error, whether that's someone forgets about them or fudges the data. Frankly, the solution is to rip out the pipes and replace them.
Mr. Riley, your time is up.
That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments in regards to lead testing. So as you have mentioned, we did have some sites that were indicated above the threshold, and we have put many of them, majority of them were hand washing sinks where drinking is not something that is normally happening in them. And then many of them were also water fountains that have been decommissioned. We haven't been using them. We had shut them down at the beginning of the pandemic, and we have in all of our buildings now water filling stations. So they were not being used for several years, but they are still required to be tested. So that's just a little bit of where we stand with it. Ms. Richardson, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to add that the first time the state came to require us to do this was 5 years ago. This is our second one. So prior to that, we weren't aware of which sinks had these issues. Also, my director of buildings and grounds is here also. So the signs are very clear on them. I don't know if you've seen one, but they're very clear on there that you're not to drink out of those. And we've had a big push for the water filling stations in all of our schools. So the students all know to go and not to waste bottles, but to go and use their regular bottle to use the water filling stations. So we're all aware of it, and I believe the students are also aware of the report.
Seeing no one else come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
I go back a few months when these meetings were unbearable. People were cursing at each other. And I must commend the private school parents for their behavior and their professional attitude, personal attitude. And I must commend the gentleman who spoke about lead in the water. It's a concern we've always had in Jackson. We've always worried about the condition of our environment for the children because we want them to be healthy, and they have to trust that when they come to the school, they're safe. However, this gives us an opportunity to look into it deeper, have more conversations. This transportation issue will be resolved as long as we keep talking sensibly. The attack on Ms. Richardson might have been deserved, but I don't think so. There are times when she is busy beyond belief. However, she tries to get back to people. When they call her, she answers back. So she might not have called back, but it's not her intent. Her intent is to get back to people. So I don't want to speak to defend her. She can defend herself. Now, I also mentioned last week about a poetry event that is nationally recognized, internationally recognized. And I'm so very glad that our people looked into it and they're going to do something about it because it benefits our school. Each teacher gets a package, a teacher's package on poetry. And I'm also happy that to read that our literature magazine is coming back to life. We have great talent in this school. And you will find with common periods and with these visitations outside of the school district, our kids will become more and more cooperative, more civil. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is probably a little grim, but I have friends who teach at Buffalo State, and I was speaking to them, and it's grim in Buffalo right now after the murder of a group of people by a young man who's just lost in this world. He's 18 years old, and the only thing he could do is hate. Now, I will tell you this circle of conversation, this peer remediation, should be done pro forma regularly just because we get to talk to each other in a circle. And you'll find out the mood of the school. You will hear things under the breath of students. When they don't really want to say it, they say it. They communicate a certain way. We find out what the climate of our community is. We have got to make sure that we talk to each other, that we have more opportunities for our students to know that we're listening and that we will hear them and that we'll let them speak. Because this school district is not immune to the madness that Buffalo experienced or that Connecticut experienced or that other districts experienced.
Mr. Acevedo, your time is up.
So follow through and you will benefit from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is the last name I have. Oh,
thank you. So, no, I appreciate the response about the time, and I know that it's been a learning curve, so I appreciate and understand that we will have more communication, and I just wanted to respectfully request if my other point could also be addressed. Once you close public forum, then we just sit and listen. So I'm just asking for that. Thank you so much. The other point about my understanding of the timeline and all the routes that were already passed up on. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Seeing no one else come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to move finance.
Motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakas?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to move facilities.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakas?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to move programs.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakas?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to move students.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. Students number 3, it looks like we're increasing the budget for bedside, students that need bedside educational instruction from 5,535 to 10,535. I was just wondering how many students do we have in the district that would need this service, and how come we are almost doubling the increase?
So I can get you the number at a later date. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we do have several students who need to be hospitalized and will need bedside instruction. We can't often predict those numbers, obviously, so sometimes we do need to increase it, and sometimes we just say the total cost up to that point so that it gives us some wiggle room to be able to, if we have an increase in students. Doesn't mean we're going to actually spend that $10,000. You're welcome.
Roll call.
Mrs. Barakas?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Barakas?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes. I need a motion to open public forum on any topic pertaining to the Board of Education.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on a topic until all others have been heard.
I called all the names on my list, so if you have something to say, just come up to the microphone and sign in.
Hi, Devar Greskin, Jackson, New Jersey. Just to reiterate, Mrs. Robinson's question was, those routes that were not bid on, can they be released as aid in lieu before the June 2nd meeting? I know last year, when you were discussing with all the administrators, it was released in waves, like as different things came up and you realized you couldn't do certain routes, you gave information. Early information is extremely important. So anything that was not picked up as a bid, that you know for sure you're not going to be able to transport, if that could be released even sooner, that would be extremely helpful. Is that a possibility? Thank you.
So again, it's going to depend on the decisions, the vote on the 2nd. But certainly, as soon as we know that, we will release that information. Ms. Richardson, will you add to that? Is an explanation? I know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that the process is not complete until the board votes on the bid. Once they vote on the bid, I can release the information, but I cannot do it until they vote on the bid.
So shortly after that 2nd meeting, we'll be able to probably release that information. Yes.
Are there any other additional questions? Seeing no one else come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Board comments. Ms. Cass.
I just want to thank Am I there? Oh, there I am. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. I know the end of this will be here. Our next meeting will be after the school year. So I just wanted to wish all of the 5th graders, the 8th graders, and the seniors great graduations and success in their futures, because those are big. I have a senior, so there's big events going on this year. As far as the transportation, I just want to say we do all own the May 6th, but I still think June 2nd is a huge improvement over August 1st. So we did make strides this year. It may not have been perfect. We do have a large number of new board members. We have a lot of things to go over. So we're learning as well, but I think we did make a big improvement over last year, and we're trying. So other than that, I just want to wish everybody a good night, safe travels, and let's go Rangers. Throw that out there.
So I would just like to congratulate everyone who's graduating this year, all the grades. Congratulations. Best of luck to our high school seniors as well. I had the privilege of attending the concert put on by the McAuliffe Chorus held by Liberty last night, and I just want to say that it was awesome. I want to congratulate all of the students who took part, especially, as well, I should say, my oldest daughter, Gianna. And yes, Dad did mention you out loud, being one of them there, so congratulations to all of them. I also want to acknowledge Miss Morgan, who did a wonderful job directing and leading the chorus. It was totally phenomenal. Thank you all for coming out to this month's board meeting. I appreciate all of the comments, and I thank you, and I wish you all to get home safely.
Ms. Bragas?
I also I wanted to congratulate all the graduates in the upcoming graduations. I'm looking forward to attending a few of them. I also wanted to thank the parents for coming out, and your questions are very much appreciated, and obviously we do hear you, and we are working as quickly as possible to get you the answers that you need as quickly as possible. I also want to congratulate our Jackson Memorial Boys Lacrosse team on their 13-5 win over Cherry Hill West in the first round of states. And I want to wish them luck against Clearview this Friday. And so thank you again for coming out this evening, those who watch us at home, and get home safely. Have a good night.
Dr. Osmond?
Thank you all for coming out today. As far as transportation goes, it's really complex, and we're trying to do it right for everybody. It's pricey, there's safety involved, and the conversations have to take place. Your administrators and your BOE, we're working, and we are trying, and we are doing our best to give you the information you need early. So thank you for working with us and for your patience. I also want to say congratulations to all of our seniors as you're going into your last few weeks of school. I wish you all luck and hope that you guys really enjoy this last month. And then also, because Allie won't say it, Drew Barocas, her son, who's on that lacrosse team, is 1 point away from his 100th point. And so, Drew, if you are watching tonight, we want to say thank you for not getting that extra point today, because your mom has to see that. Thank you all for coming out.
Mr. Sargent?
Good evening. So I think that everybody's pretty much talked about the busing issue. I just also want to add that we're still 60 days ahead of the state schedule, which is kind of a joke to me. But the one thing that I want to say is that I personally am going to be following up on the idea of letting all private students' parents know whether they're going to be bused or not. And I'm going to be doing that in the next 24 hours, because I can't understand why we can't get that answer quicker than the date that we set forth. I'd also like to say that the date that we set is a date that all this board can then, we have 2 weeks to review everything that we've already reviewed. And Giuseppe's just done a great job in trying to get it all together. But unfortunately, we still need more time. So please be patient. allow us to work through all this, and I'm sure that you're going to get an answer pretty soon. Everyone drive safely. Have a good night.
Okay, I just want to add one thing because I think it's really important that we're transparent and honest with people. And we are a BOE, we are a board. You can't really promise that you are going to reach out to people in 24 hours.
I was going to reach out to them. I said that I was going to be investigating it.
Just make sure it's clear so that people understand what you said.
Thank you all for coming out this evening, your input, your presentation, your comments. I thank you all, Ms. Primelli, staff, and the board members to working collaboratively in all our efforts. Everyone have a safe and wonderful evening. I need a motion to adjourn by acclamation. All in favor? Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.